Hello. So the topic of today's video is what is reality, and discovering what reality is beyond our thoughts. And this is going to be just, I'm going to try to keep it short. I always say this is going to be a short video and then it ends up longer than I assumed, but I'd like to keep this short and practical. And I think I'll just introduce the topic for a couple minutes, and then I'll give you one of the inquiries that's worked best for me and that has seemed to be quite popular with my clients. The bottom line is this. When we were born, we had no concept of anything. We heard sounds, saw colors and shapes, and that was about it. And we experienced our life directly. We experienced reality directly without the filter of the mind for the first couple years of our lives. And it's only as we started discovering language and discovering that things, had names and had, labels in terms of being good and bad and judgments associated to them, that not only did the world start having its own filtered reality, but we started having a very specific reality of ourselves, as being a person, as being a boy or a girl, as being a particular name, a particular age, as being a good boy or a bad girl or a good girl or a bad boy, whatever it might have been. But what I want to point to is that obviously before we had thought, we existed. And for a lot of us, this is such a mental culture that for a lot of us, we don't think that there's much of anything beyond our thoughts. We don't think that we exist beyond our thinking process, beyond what we think of ourselves. And that's what I want to try to challenge today. The mind is a filter. It literally takes in reality as it is, reality with a big R, and it turns it into something. And it doesn't really matter if it turns it to something good or bad. It just turns it into something that it is not. And a lot of my personal practice has been to kind of figure out what's actually real beyond thoughts. What's true with a big T beyond thoughts. So that includes just figuring out who I am beyond my thinking, beyond any idea that I have of myself. And also figuring out what is really happening out there in this world when I don't think about it. We can even look at time and the experience of time. And I can ask you right now, if you don't think about it, how do you experience time? The truth is you can't. Everything about time is a thought process. For you to have a thought or experience the process of time, you have to be thinking about the future or you have to be thinking about the past. And so this inquiry over and over is, what is actually happening if you don't think about it? So, one of my favorite inquiry for experiencing our true nature, our deepest nature, is what remains when I stop thinking. And you might just try that, say to yourself, what's here when I let go of all thoughts? What's here when there's no thinking? And what's here is spaciousness, silence, awakeness, presencing. It's not something that can be grasped. It's not something that can be understood by the mind or conceptualized or philosophized about it. It's just the nature of who we are in that moment. It is boundless. It is silent. It doesn't exist in time, so it's timeless. There's no borders to it, so it's infinite. And over, being able to say, what remains when there's no thinking? And in that moment, you experience the direct reality of not only yourself, beyond any concept, but also of whatever is happening around you. Shapes, colors, sensations, awakeness, boundlessness, movements, and yet stillness. Just this dance of paradox, this dance of something that is ungraspable by the mind, that cannot be described. At this point, this is where words fail us in many ways. But, so this is my favorite little inquiry. And it can be used in different ways. So when I'm working with a client and they're talking about something that is very upsetting to them, I might say, of course, I'm being sensitive about what's going on with them. And what is going on with us is true from one perspective. But I might also say, what happens to your problem if you stop thinking about it? In this moment, drop every thought about it. Where is it? Where can you find it? And problems disappear in that moment. The moment that literally a problem is a thought. You cannot have problems without having thoughts about them. In this moment, if I drop all thoughts, is there a problem? It's very rare, unless you're in physical pain, to find real problems in this moment. It's the mind that comes into it. And even the concept of physical pain, there is the initial direct raw experience of pain, and then there is a story around it. How can I live with this? What's going on with me? I shouldn't feel this way. How come I feel this way and not others? It's not fair. A whole lot of stories, gets added to our direct experience. And so this is my invitation for you guys, is throughout the day, drop in into your own boundless, unconditioned, beyond thought experience of yourself and of your environment. Whenever you're struggling with something, drop all stories, drop everything, and just meet yourself in that moment and see if anything arises from that space. And over, just being able to recognize who and what we are beyond our ideas of ourselves. And the more you do this, the more it becomes something that just starts. It's like the background of who we are becomes lit up. And there's a shift that happens. All our senses are focused in this direction. They're focused outward. And so we're used to always moving in this direction. And everything that we experience is experienced through the filter of thoughts. And so as we started playing this little game with ourselves of dropping all these thoughts, the only thing that's left is the background. The background of our own experience of who and what we are, and also the background, like whatever is happening out there being experienced from that background. And so as you work through this, letting go of thoughts, letting go of this foreground, and bringing this background forward over and over, at some point something like this happens, where the background of your experience, reality as it is, your true nature as you know yourself, starts shifting, and you start realizing that this background is just as real, if not more real, than whatever is happening out here, whatever idea, the sense of me, the sense of I'm Ilsa, I'm Maggie, I'm a woman, I'm a man, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm 30, I'm 50, I'm 15, all of these stories. I'm a teacher, I'm a therapist, I'm a lawyer, I'm a mother, I'm a father, I'm a daughter. All these roles, everything we say about ourselves, all of that is partially true, and yet this moving aliveness, this awakeness becomes more real. This shifts. This never shifts. It's the constant of our experience. This was here before thought ever came. This was here before we had a name, before we knew of gender. This has always been here. And so the challenge here is to shift our focus from what is always moving, kind of glitzy, sometimes very grabbing, to what is more subtle in our experience, but is the constant of our experience.